What if the hammers were already laying around those other...
So the question is, how could the culprit have gotten their hands on either? Personally, I haven't a clue. So which hammer was used to attack Celeste? Number 1 or number 2?
Those were accounted for in other rooms too. And I don't think either one is big enough to kill someone.
Is it not possible they used a different weapon?
I don't think it is possible. They were both killed with the same kind of thing, right?
So then, what was used... What was used to kill Hifumi? Was it Justice Hammer 3? Maybe Justice Hammer 4?
Well, whatever it was, there's one thing we have to figure out. How was the culprit able to move around so freely with the weapon? How did nobody witness them carrying it? Sounds like a Justice Hammer 5 is about to...
What was used to kill?
Was it just maybe Justice? Well, there's one. How was the culprit? How did nobody read? Sounds like a Justice Hammer. Check out murdergear.com/hammertime.
Well, one thing seems pretty clear. The murder weapon had to be one of the Justice Hammers. And, that's about it.
What was used? Was it just maybe Justice? Well, there's one. How was the culprit? How did nobody read? Sounds like a Justice Hammer. Check out murdergear.com.
Well, the murder weapon had to be...
No, it's wrong! The murder weapon wasn't a Justice Hammer at all. No, it was something completely...
But, seriously?
Specifically, a hammer from the repository. The killer could have... Now, all the hammers in the repository were covered in flecks of grit and debris, but for some reason, one of them had been scrubbed clean. And the reason it had been scrubbed clean was most likely because it was used to if the hammer got covered in Hifumi's blood, of course they'd... I'd also like to point out that the repository has all kinds of hammers. Big ones, and even some flat I think whoever made the Justice Hammers used those as a basis for their design.
If that's true, that would explain the Monokuma Files note about the wounds being similar.
So Hifumi moved Taka's body to the repository, where someone then used the hammer to kill him.
Whoever did that is the true killer. The one Hifumi was working with. And, hold on a moment. I still think it's strange to assume someone was working together with him. The way the graduation rule works, there is no benefit to helping someone else carry out a murder. So the idea that anyone would work together like that is simply ludicrous. We talked about this, did we not? Based on the rules that have been laid out for us, even if more than one person is complicit in the murder, only the one who actually carried out the act can graduate and survive. Assuming the rule holds true, it is simply impossible that two people work together on this.
That is how the rule was explained to us.
But that only really applies if there's one murder, right? In this case, however, there were two murders.
Based on the rules that have been laid out for us, even if more than one, only the one who actually carried out the act, assuming the rule holds true, it is simply impossible that two people work together on this.
That is how the rule was explained to us.
But that only really applies if there's one murder, right? In this case, were two murders.
Based on the rules that have been laid out for us, even if more than one person is complicit in the murder, only the one who actually carried out the act can graduate and survive, assuming the rule holds simply impossible that two people work together on this.
That is,
But that only really applies in this case, however, were two murders.
Based on the rules that have even if more than one, only the one who actually, assuming the rule holds true, it is...
No, it's wrong. Since there were two murders, it's at least plausible that more than one person was involved.
what do you mean?
If there'd only been one murder, then yes, the idea of an accomplice isn't really worth considering. Naturally, if only one person can be saved per murder, an accomplice has no risk versus reward benefit.
Risk versus reward.
The payoff for working together. The reward that balances out the risk of taking part in a scheme. There's no point in being someone's accomplice if there's no benefit. However, if there were some potential mutual reward for the risk, then cooperation becomes possible.
You're saying that two people could act as each other's accomplices to commit two separate murders.
I think that's what the true killer told Hifumi. They would each have an accomplice for their crime, and based on the case's events, Hifumi would have been the first one to act, murdering Taka. They made him carry out the first murder so he couldn't back out of helping them later on.
So in this case, there wasn't one single person committing multiple. Instead, each person killed someone. And it only looked like one person because that's how the true killer does. A single suspicious individual, a similar weapon used in each crime, disappearance. By creating one seamless set of circumstances, they made it look like one person.
The mastermind picked their target and managed to convince him to go along with their plan. And then, to avoid the no accomplices rule, they simply killed their accomplice. Which, if true, means that betraying Hifumi was part of a plan from the...
That's just awful!
You think so? I can't help but admire its cunning. Still, their choice...
I understand how an accomplice could be involved. But then, who was the one pulling Hifumi's strings?
That's problem numero uno right now!
Here's my answer. It was Celeste.
So I'm the suspicious I really do.
A joke? I wonder...
So what you are saying, then, is that I specifically chose to work the idea that I would choose to spend any amount of time that I would go within 10 feet of that shit-cunt, brain fat, lazy, worthless, goddamn idiot!
Just to be clear, there is evidence to support
Is that so?
it is. Throughout the investigation, there was certain behavior that was common only to the two of you. Considering what we've learned so far, it only further proves that the two of you were working together.
I got it! The behavior they had in common has to do with the suspicious individual in the suit. The only ones who ever actually saw Robo-Justice firsthand were Celeste and Hifumi.
Shush, the adults are talking now. As he said, only Celeste and Hifumi ever laid eyes on the costumed individual. If we accept that Hifumi was one of the culprits, we can't help but suspect what Celeste has said as well.
Are you saying everything they told us?
After taking Hifumi to the nurse's office, we all began our search for this individual, correct? And not too long after that, do you remember what Celeste said? We headed to the second floor specifically because of what she claimed next to draw us all to the physics lab up.
She let out a blood-curdling scream.
And when we'd all come to see what was wrong, what was it she said? Once she'd done her job of getting us all up to the physics lab, it was time for her partner to get to.
It was to get us to divide into two groups, so that we would discover.
In fact, Celeste was precisely the one who proposed that we split up. Well, if Celeste and Hifumi were working together, all those chance events. And on top of that, that piercing cry of yours early on. That was to signal Hifumi, wasn't it? It was your way of telling him, we're on the third floor, everything's going according to plan. Why else would you let out a scream that could have carried across the sea?
I just realized another when we found Hifumi in the nurse's office, who we now know was only pretending to be. Celeste, you were the first one to. You wanted to make sure we wouldn't have any doubt in our minds.
I don't believe it!
Hina, you were with Celeste when Hifumi's body disappeared, right?
Yeah? I was feeling kinda Wait! Then that was...
She wasn't worried about you. She just saw a chance to help Hifumi sneak out of the nurse's office.
Each piece isn't much by itself, but start putting them together and the picture gets very Wouldn't you agree, Celeste?
I have no idea what you mean.
Don't bother trying to deny it. You made one fatal...
Oh, indeed.
I didn't even catch it myself when you first said it, but looking back, I can say that that one little slip-up was your undoing.
What are you
I'm talking about what you said after Hifumi's body disappeared and we returned to the nurse's office.
I remember her saying that too, but
Then pay attention. Sakura, Toko, and I were first to discover Taka's body in the equipment. Then Makoto showed up and told us Hifumi had been killed. So Sakura and I left with Makoto. Once we were in the hall, we ran into Celeste, and the four of us headed to the nurse's office. Now, the entire time we were together, none of us said anything about it. Think about it. Celeste's comment doesn't make sense. It was
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Although
You hear that, Celeste? Everyone's having some trouble understanding. Could you repeat? If you're really not the culprit, you shouldn't have any problem.
All I said was, they must really be enjoying this. Enjoying the sight of us standing around, frightened and confused. They must be positively elated. We are all going to die here. We are going to die, just like those guys died. And that is all I said.
And that's all it takes to finish this. It's obvious, isn't it, what was so strange about Celeste's comment?
All I said was, they must really be enjoying this. Enjoying the sight of us standing around, frightened and confused. They must be positively elated. We are all going to die here. We are going to die, just like those guys did. And that is all I said.
And that's all it takes to finish this. It's obvious, isn't it, what was so strange about...
All I said was, they must really enjoying the sight of us. They must be, we are all going to die here. We are going to die.
Just like...
No, that's wrong. That's right. There's no reason Celeste should have said, just like those guys died. When she said that, none of us had told her Taka was dead.
Exactly. And we didn't run into her until after we were all... So there was never any chance for her to have seen his body in the equipment room for herself.
So how did you know, Celeste? How did you know more than one person? Because Kyoko had also disappeared, right? So she could have been dead too.
You all have such vivid imaginations. You know that?
Imaginations?
You claim that I was lying when I told you about the suspicious person I saw. Then what about the picture I took? How do you explain this picture of the costumed villain dragging Hifumi away?
It has to be some kind of setup, right? So let's put the suit on, and then she used the camera's timer to set up the picture.
Have you so quickly forgotten? You are the only one who could have possibly fit into that suit. Plus, I happen to know that this particular camera does not... In other words, it is an unassailable fact that this is a picture of Hifumi being dragged away. If everything I told you was a lie, how can this picture be simple?
Are we sure that's really a picture of the suspect?
What could you possibly mean by that?
Surely there are other explanations than the one you've offered.
No, there is no other explanation.
I got it! It's not a picture of the suspect dragging Hifumi away. I would say it's a picture of Hifumi
That's certainly within the realm of possibility. The one being dragged off in that picture isn't Hifumi, but the person in the robot suit. We've simply been led to believe that it's the other way around. And the strange costume might only exist to lead us astray even farther. If you saw someone wearing something like that in this situation, of course you'd notice and be suspicious.
That's what happened! You put me to sleep and made me out to be the bad guy in all this!
Such is utterly impossible. Hifumi was dragging him away?
Is it? I don't think it's ridiculous at all.
Then shut your mouth and allow me to educate.
dressed me up in that suit after I passed out. Then you just draped me across Hifumi and had him carry my weight. You tried to make me look like the bad guy.
Like I said, ridiculous. As you can see in the picture, the suspect is standing perfectly upright. If the person inside the suit was unconscious, there's no way they could stand up straight like that.
Then the fortune-telling idiot is the culprit after all!
No way!